I grew up in LA. I actually wrote it originally. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning and I could not sleep. And whenever that happens, it's usually because there's a song sitting in my brain somewhere. So I sat up and I grabbed my guitar and I wrote this really like kind of like angsty song, you know? And what it's about is, so obviously I grew up in LA, that's real. And it's about the trauma that I've endured here from becoming addicted to drugs because of one of my first serious relationships, which I touch on in the first verse. You know, it says, like people think I'm going to say fell in love with blue eyes, but it's, you know, I fell in love with that blue pill and I chased it down with some white girls. So blue pill is oxy and white girls cocaine. And that kind of set me off on my run, as we like to call it, from, 16 until 27. And so the trauma of being addicted to drugs at that young and being in the industry and knowing people in the industry and the things that they ask for from women, of basically like, you do this for me and I'll do this for you. And you're kind of just like so young. And I didn't have a parental figure at that time, really, because of a lot of complicated family issues. And I just was like, okay, like I didn't know what to do. And so it touches on like sexual assault and it touches on eating disorders, because from the age of 5, I was, in pageants and like in front of casting directors and being told that I needed to lose weight and to be skinnier and my cheeks had too much fat. And, basically from a young age, staring at myself constantly and being like, I need to be prettier, like being 13 and like throwing at my food. Right. And like the struggles of, because this story isn't just about me. I know so many other women and men that have gone through this in this town of just like, you have to look a certain way. You need to stay young. You need to do your drug. You basically need to be pretty skinny and shut up. Right. Like that's what it is. And so that's what the song is about, is going through all of that. But then at the end being like, joke's on you because I made it, I made it out better and stronger. And I didn't let this town take me. And I don't feel, it's touched about a lot in like movies and things of that nature, but it's like, people think that it's not real, like it's something that's created in a script, but it's so real. Yeah,
they definitely think, people that are from outside California for sure definitely think it's more like a over, exaggerated kind of, stereotype like you see in movies and TV shows and you just hear about, but the reality behind it, I think you really brought the reality part of the worst parts of the LA culture, to the song. And like you're saying, there are other songs, but not really. They're always kind of from I think of like maybe like Katy Perry and like California Girls, which is like this very happy, just everything's just great, lifestyle out there. But then there's like there's this side of LA that, that doesn't really get talked about too much.
Yeah. No one talks about also what it does to your psyche as a young girl and being put in that spotlight, right? Like, finally, like the Britney Spears documentary just came out. You know what I mean? Yeah. But for so long, like it's just starting to get spoken about. But like no one thought that it was wrong to put a 13-year-old girl in a pageant and be based on her looks and then be putting her with these casting directors who are grown men saying that I need to be sexier and I need to look older. I'm 13. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so then I get addicted to drugs and I'm like, okay, I gotta be what they told me I need to be, right? So I'm gonna do whatever you say or tell me to do to be loved and to be validated, right? Because that's what's bred and that's how I make money and that's how I'm cool, right? And it's a load of, BS. It's just, and no one talks about that, like putting your kids, unless you have a discussion with your kids and you're raising them a certain way that you're going to be so present with them, don't do that to them. You know what I mean? Like you need to fully be there even more because the rejection that I felt as a kid, it's insane, and I know it's getting better in the industry now with everything that's come out, but back then, it was not good.
Yeah. Like you said, it hasn't really been talked about, but it's kind of starting to kind of creep into more the mainstream, particularly like music, because then there are like a lot of ex-Disney singers and actors and stuff, all these like that are talking more openly about it. And then like their music's becoming kind of, I feel like it's getting to that point where they can openly talk about these issues more. And that,
right.
you know, like, so it is nice to see that things are kind of shifting towards a more realistic and more truthful position, particularly in music and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's such a struggle as a female artist to not only be taken seriously, but to be respected, especially if you're not going to do what the old boys want you to do, right? Because that boys club still exists. Because someone with my talent, if there's two of me, right? There's two Dannys. The one that's like, no, I'm not going to do what you want me to do. Probably if I, you know, it's going to be a lot harder for me to get the same opportunities as Danny 2, who's going to do what they want me to do. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so now that we're talking more about it, it can't happen as much. And so I just want to keep talking about it. You know, I want to keep talking about my struggles because that's what music's about for me. It's not about being famous. It's not about people knowing my name. It's that when I was 14, I heard someone's song and I was like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, I'm not the only one that feels like this, you know? And so I want, you know, and I get those messages from people and they're just like, I don't have a huge following, but it could be 50 people, you know, that are like, hey, I wanted to kill myself today. And I listened to your music and I realized that I'm not alone. And I'm like, dude, yeah, that's right. You know what I mean? Like, that's what matters to me is that someone else, I'm connecting with whoever that is. And it could just be that one person, you know, and that's more than enough for me.